don't care how good it is. We can't give you free money. Your employer can.
I think we lose a lot of credibility when we say the 401k match is a scam. The message of giving your dollars more than one job and that insurance is not an investment. And when integrated, does this make your financial life better?
Whole life will never be sexy. Just chalk that up. It just won't. There's this book that I read that my friend who's the guest today did, and it was called The And Asset. And I remember I was given this book, super simple read. The book literally changed my perspective on everything that we do in this industry with the infinite banking concept. And I'm literally privileged to have you back on the show again. I know we just got done doing your podcast, Better Wealth, and here we are, continuing this conversation. So welcome back.
Dude, I had a blast chatting with you. I was showing you slides that I've never showed to the public before. A calculator that we haven't released, getting your real time, and then we even got to hash it out. We drew drawings. We went at it. I love chatting with people that intellectually are curious and are pursuing the truth. And so, thank you so much for always being willing to hash it out with me.
I bring a lot of people on from our industry, but the one thing about you that's always so cool is we don't always agree on every, point with infinite banking or whole life or just the different ways we do things. But the best thing is each of us challenge one another to go push further. Like what we just did in your podcast, like that isn't the end of it. Like we ended and I'm like, no, I have to solve this problem because listen, I believe math can pretty much solve just about anything when it comes to finance. And like we kind of left that open-ended and I am going to close that gap and come back because I'm curious. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. I don't think it's a right or wrong question. I think it's just, I just got to know. And sometimes that's the coolest thing when we have these discussions, like, when we were talking about the practitioners group, like I challenged you and you went out and you like pushed into it. And like, that's how we operate. I love that.
Yeah, I think you said it well. I think you said it well. And I'm ready, dude. I'm ready for anything. So where do you want to begin?
I just want to dive in and kind of pick up a little bit from what we talked about on yours, but I want to go even deeper. A lot of times in what we do, we face a lot of hesitation, a lot of people that say this is too good to be true. And we also face a lot of haters, industry haters. And I'm okay with that. I know you are too. But one of the things that you just can't disagree with, and you've created a calculator for this, is you just can't disagree with, the fact of why a whole life is simply a better option for where your money goes, your savings specifically. And you did such a good job of kind of going through and showing all these check marks. And I made the comment, I said, listen, if we didn't have to call it whole life and we just called it something else, if we didn't have compliance saying, no, you got to call it whole life, people would line up at the door because they would understand that this solves their problem. But when we put a label on it, all of a sudden people are like, oh, no, I don't want that. And I make fun of people all the time. I'm like, so you said you wanted higher guaranteed interest rates that never change. Your bank is always changing the rates. You wanted a guaranteed interest rate. You'd like to get dividends. You'd love for that interest and dividends to grow tax-free. You'd love it if you got sued or somebody tripped and fell at your property. You didn't have to have any risk of losing this money in most states. And you'd love to leave your family in a better place and replace your income when you're gone so your family can continue living the lifestyle that they've grown accustomed to. Like, you agree, you want all those things, right? And then if I can prove to you that how this thing would solve all those problems even more efficiently than anything else you can show me, more efficient than any other place you can put your money, you'd say this is better, right? And to which they'd not. But then if I tell you what it is, oh, this is just a specially designed whole life, you'd be like, no, I don't want that. Yeah, that's hilarious.
It's intellectually lazy, and here's why. If something can help me better my situation, I should want that. I think evolution would say if something is better, I don't care what it's called. If it betters my family, I don't care if you get paid a 500% commission. Why do I care about your commission if it makes it better? Like, that's the whole funny thing about commissions. We happen to set up policies that were lowering our commission. Why? Because we're bettering the situation for the person that's working with us. But it shouldn't matter if I'm getting paid, 1,000% commission. It should only matter what it does for your family. Another way, it shouldn't matter if I'm earning nothing. I'm fee only. I don't get paid product. Great. How is X, Y, and Z, bettering my financial situation. And that's where I think people need to lean into. And we get around like these talking points, but how does that actually translate into results, outcomes, and your life?
Early on in my career, it was probably 2004. We had a consultant come in, at the firm that I was at, and he said one of the most profound things, and I've never forgotten this. I mean, that's a long time ago. That's 21 years ago, I think, if I'm doing the math right. He said, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. Let that sink in, folks. Like, cost is only an issue in the absence of value. If what we did is we went through our entire life and we looked at all the things we value, and then we then reverse engineered it and then looked at what they cost, we wouldn't give two shits about what it cost because the value outweighed the cost. And that is just the thing we need to flip. We need to focus more on the value of what things do in our life, and then the cost isn't an issue. I don't know. I just love that.
Yeah, I think that's well said, and it's something that we should be challenged by because we all have biases, and sometimes it's very easy to say like, "Oh, I hate this." I'll say something that I can't say. If there's an IUL company out there that comes up with a really no lose IUL, we should be intellectually honest and not write off all IUL in perpetuity as bad evil because I think we lose credibility. And so I think anytime, and we talked about this offline a little bit, is anytime you try to censor speech, you're actually creating more power for the people speaking.
Yeah, you are. Yep.
And so I think there's something that we need to be able to dialogue, and we need to be able to be intellectually honest to say, hey, they're improving this product, and here's 10 reasons why I still wouldn't do it. But I want to be able to, and I've changed my stance on a lot of things. Like I used to be very anti 401k. Now I'm like, if I had an opportunity to have a 401k match, I would take the match. I used to not fund.
We got to talk about this for just a second. But this is so important.
Okay. I will also want to say, one of my biggest financial regrets, I'm going to be dramatic here, is when I made too much money to qualify for a Roth IRA, I wasn't doing a backdoor Roth. And I did a backdoor Roth, and my wife and I both did a backdoor Roth this year. And I'm going to do a Roth every single year for the rest of my life. And yeah, it's not that much money, but it's like, those are the things that I look back on, and my 19-year-old self, I'm not saying I was like, I disagree with my 19-year-old self. And I believe that some people might call me a hypocrite, but some people will be like, I appreciate when you, Caleb, are learning and you're willing to say that you're wrong. And so those are two examples that I'll just say that, I've developed on. And so, yeah,
that's how you get better though. But, let's go back to the 401k. So, I was an advisor, for 16 years and I sold a lot of 401ks, probably hundreds of millions in total over my career. And the one thing I've never changed my stance on this, but I've kind of had to work around something. So, my partner, Brent Kessler, hates 401ks, speaks against them all the time. And I cringe. The hair on my arm stands up when I hear him speaking. Because number one, I'm like, oh gosh, you really shouldn't be saying that. But number two, I'm like, that's really not the best advice you can give these people. Because if your company that you work for, and let's just put all the things on the table, you're happy at the company you're at, you don't plan on leaving, like you think there's upward mobility, all these things, and you got a 401k that gives you a 4% match with Safe Harbor. Why would you not? Why would you not put 4% in that? Like, I just can't find any reason where that's bad. To put 4% of your pay into your retirement account. Yes, it's locked away till 59 and a half. Yes, you don't really control it, but to be able to put that money in and then they give you 4%, that's free money. I'm sorry. And some people will like, it's not free because of the vesting schedule. Let's just assume you meet the vesting schedule. Because remember I said you're happy where you're at. Like that is indeed free money. And I don't care how good the infinite banking concept is, what, Caleb and myself both teach, I don't care how good it is. We can't give you free money. Your employer can. So I just want to set the stage. Like that has to be kind of a neutral standpoint across everybody, because it's really from a fiduciary standpoint. Like I think anybody that's speaking against that, saying, oh, you shouldn't do that, I think you could probably get sued. Because
even if you withdraw that money, assuming you're past your vesting period and you take penalties and fees, you could still arbitrage that because you're getting I'm putting $1 in and I'm getting 100% return.
100%.
And I will say, like in anything, there's no like, I might sound contradictory, but there's a world where if you're betting on Chris, you're betting on Caleb early on, there you may decide to go all in. I'm not going to tell you from my standpoint to do that, but I do respect the person that's like, you know what, burn the ships. I appreciate the 100%, but I'm going to bet on myself over. But that's for you to make that decision. And I agree with you. So there's scenarios. You'll always be able to paint the scenario where the person that didn't take the 401k was better off. But math will tell you and statistics and averages will tell you that, yeah, we have a problem if you're only able to save 4%, period. Like you should be saving 20, 30, 30%. Okay. I said it. So saving 4% over here, funding a Roth over here shouldn't take away from your ability to do other things. And if it does, then you really do have to ask the question, what's going to help me increase my greatest asset, which is yourself. And I do think that if you stuff all your money in accounts that you don't have control of and you're keeping your earning ability at 80,000 when it could be at 160, then you could easily have a conversation around that 401k, being the quote unquote issue. I don't like to go down that road. And so that's me playing both sides of trying to like hear both arguments, but to call it a scam or to call it a total ripoff, that's where I think we need to be careful, because I think we lose a lot of credibility when we say the 401k match is a scam. Dude, you lost me.
You don't lose a little credibility. You lose all credibility when it's in a stance where you're like, you're speaking to somebody that then goes and says that to their financial advisor. You're buried. You're done. Like there's no coming back.
And we hate when people generalize life insurance.
Yeah.
So, but then we turn around and do the same thing. That's like when we were talking, I'm like, when I first got started. Yeah. When I first got started, I was really, we would say life insurance is not an investment, but you're really trying to compete with investments. And then the more mature I get, I'm like, no, it's not. And I'm like less hypey about insurance, but I value it more. Like, get that. I don't know. Yeah. I just have less desire to try to convince you, but I have more conviction of this asset class. And the same thing that I hate when people like generalize. This is like, first of all, we should just stop calling things scams, because unless it's something like literally someone from like India trying to like take your money and like steal from you, it's not a scam. You can disagree with like but like a 401k is not a scam. Your Roth IRA is not a scam. The stock market's not a scam. Insurance is not a scam. It just is at tools that might not be set up well for you and your outcomes and your results, but words matter. And so what we hate people doing to our industry, we should not do the same. And I think if we can take the higher road, and so, you're right. How does it get integrated? That's why the last couple of years, just seeing people like Tom Wall and Dr. Wade Fowle and Ed Slott, all these people are talking about how insurance can be integrated. And I know you and I don't like the retirement necessarily pitch in the space, but I think it's really exciting and cool.
I actually love it. I did one of my better performing YouTube videos is on Wade Fowle's integration as a volatility buffer in a retirement strategy.
I'm just saying you and I probably don't get, I get more excited talking about entrepreneurs and how you utilize capital, but the idea, and this is everyone that does infinite banking should know this, because you're accumulating your money in insurance products that is a great product. And these are academics over here that don't practice infinite banking, don't endorse infinite banking. And they're saying typical whole life over 20, 30 years, how this asset can unlock other assets in your retirement. And then I look at it and say, what if you could get the best of both worlds? What if you could overfund, utilize the infinite banking concept, and have all the same options that they talked about? That for me was like, oh my goodness, the world needs to hear about this, because we can be giving all the benefits over. It's not an either or. They should be married together. And so that's for me. I'm like, man, we need more people talking about this.
There's a PhD white paper, and I can't think of who the author was, not Wade, but it really goes through and compares whole life insurance. And I want to be very clear to the audience, when we're referring to these PhDs or these scholars, if you will, when they're talking about whole life, they are talking about off the shelf whole life insurance, 100% base, because they don't know anything else, right? That's what they know. That's all I knew as an advisor. I didn't know you could overfund the PUA and create a high early cash value policy. Like, it was just a whole life is a whole life is a whole life. Yep. put premium in, and after a period of time, you got some cash value. Woo! And you make this internal rate of return. That's how we always looked at it. And that's how they look at it. So this study showed, and it was very involved, almost put you to sleep involved, but it was great for me. It was comparing muni bonds, municipal bonds, and an aggregate muni bond fund. And it did it over, I think, a 30-year period, and it compared it to a whole life. Which one do you think won?
The whole life.
Of course it did. I mean, it literally was a percent. It was everything compared side by side. I think it was only a period of like 10 years where the muni bond was slightly ahead of the whole life, to which he then said, but the whole life has a death benefit to protect your family. And so he did call that out. And then after that, the whole life ran away from the muni bond, like in a big way. So he made the cases. He's like, realistically, this is a better option, is what he was essentially saying. And it's just really bothers me that just from a general public perception, they look so down on whole life insurance, even from an industry standpoint. Like if we layer in all the financial advisors and I'm not going to call it out, but the IUL shops, the IMOs that just pitch, IULs and teach completely the wrong way to sell them, might I add. But if we just bring that in, they do an even better job of downplaying and making whole life seem like the worst place you can put your money, because they're always comparing it against something. It's never what your book talks about, the and asset. It's the whole life and the S&P. It's the whole life and the real estate investment. It's the whole life and, your business investment. It's not this or that. It never has been and never will be. And if you think it is, then you need to study history on how this has been used.
Oh, go on. Sorry.
No, I'm going on a rant, but I was just going to say, and that's why your book was so powerful. It was the first time that I heard somebody, because I didn't even know you when I read your book, but it was the first time I'd heard somebody actually call that out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, exactly.
That's why we need to be tough on the people in our space. And we should not be straight up life insurance apologists. We should have disclaimers, because there's a lot of nasty things being done. I mean, there's lawsuits. The Kyle Busch lawsuit is, Chris, one of many that are going to come out.
There's, what did I read? This is a little old. 50 class action lawsuits pending right now against IUL companies. Like, I know that doesn't mean much. You're like, 50 doesn't seem like, no. Class actions, like conglomerate class action lawsuits. Like, I've never even heard of anything having 50 class action lawsuits against it.
Well, and who thought it was a great idea? Like, I'm no shade to network marketing. I'm sure it's a great way to sell certain things, but whose great idea was it to say, we're going to create a network marketing style to sell a financial product? And we wonder why we get bad rap. I mean, that
World Financial Group.
What?
I think it was World Financial Group. If you're really
it's just the whole concept is like, it becomes a joke, and so then it's like, okay, yeah, there's a lot of people that have insurance license. Insurance license is not that hard to get.
No,
and they peddle things. They sell permanent insurance to people that shouldn't get it. They're over pitching the things that they're saying. I mean, we see what happened to Kyle Busch, and he's like a sophisticated person. Like, he might not know anything about money, but he's got money. And then you say, like, yeah, this is not a good look for the teachers, the people that are broke and that they're sold a pipe dream. And you even have people in the whole life insurance space. You have people that are, in certain institutions that are, quote unquote, promoting the right product, that are still overselling things. And so I'm empathetic to that. And that's why I think we have a lot of power having a platform, because we can call someone out. I might not like what you're doing, Chris, and I can be under my breath, call you out, but it's like, okay, then I'm just making myself miserable. Actually create a platform and expose. Like, that's the thing that I want more people to do. Is there's a lot of smart people in this space that don't have a platform, that should get a platform, because that is how we're going to get better, is when we start having conversations like this, start calling people out, but start holding a standard. And instead of letting regulatory arms do what they should be doing, which I'm not in favor of having more regulation, we should let the market decide. But the only way that the market can be more efficient is if we get more voices.
Yeah,
and we call bad actors out.
And I'm sure everybody in our industry would love to have a platform, but we live in a weird society where it's your way right away, and that isn't how platforms work. Maybe during COVID, I would say that's probably the only time, and it will be the only time where you could actually build a platform relatively easy and scale it quickly. The platforms that are built today, like when you see somebody just kind of pop out of nowhere with a platform or a whole bunch of followers on YouTube or Instagram, I guarantee you 99.9% of them are buying those followers and sabotaging their entire brand. They don't even know they're doing it. They just think that the number is what matters when it isn't. Like building a platform, YouTube, for example, like you've got a big subscriber base. I'm about to hit 100,000, which is
Yeah. Congrats,
monumental. It
man.
took me 7 freaking years,
Yeah.
7 years of posting a video a day at a run rate, a cost rate of about $25,000 a month for the team and everything that goes into that. Like just do the math. Like, and people are like, well, you're making money on YouTube. Yeah, 3 to 6 grand a month, like doesn't cover the expenses yet. But what you have to understand is the intrinsic value, and I'll use that word, that intrinsic value of having a true, authentic platform,
Yeah.
especially YouTube. It is the hardest platform to build. It is the hardest one to scale with fake followers. It is honestly, to me, when I started YouTube, let me just talk YouTube for a second, because I think this is vital for anyone in our industry or anyone trying to build a business for that matter. The best time to start a YouTube channel is right now, but you've got to really commit to it and you have to understand it. So back 7 years ago, or maybe it's 8 years now, when I started this, I had this idea, and this is before I really even understood it. I looked at YouTube and I looked at what it was and how people used it. People went there to learn things. They had to fix, their car. They had to do this. They went there to learn stuff, right? And then there was some entertainment to the learning, which was really cool. And that's how I used it. So I looked at it and I said, YouTube to me is a lot like when I was a child. When I was a child, there wasn't all the channels there are today. Okay. There was HBO, Cinemax, and Showtime. And any of you older folks out there, you're like, oh, yeah, that was all there was. And I remember HBO. That's the primary one I watched because I thought they had the best movies. And how HBO operated is HBO would run a popular movie over and over and over again. And I could never understand, why is this movie always on? I want to see different movies. Well, it made perfect sense. That movie got the ratings. That movie was the one that everybody wanted to watch and did watch. So I said, all right, well, these production places, these houses like Paramount, and all the other ones, Pixar, the people that make the movies, they know what HBO likes. So what they do is they produce movies, content, if you will, that appeases to what HBO is playing more of right now. And I'm like, boom, I got it. YouTube is HBO. I'm just the movie producer. So I just have to go on to YouTube, look at what's popular and what's trending on YouTube in my particular category. And I need to make videos that appease to YouTube, not the public, to YouTube. What does YouTube want to push? And that's exactly what I've done for 7 years.
Good. Yeah. YouTube wants more eyeballs because they're able to sell more
ads.
And so if you can partner with a company, you win by default, because the more ads that they're able to sell, they're able to give you a portion. So that's great.
But it's just like, building a platform takes
tough.
a lot of time and energy and effort and money. And that's just something a lot of people are unwilling to do. And because of that, that's why in our industry, it's so difficult for new agents or new advisors to get off the ground. Most of them, and I'm going to play back into IUL companies and in the multi-level marketing, most agents in the industry standard don't make it past 2 years. The probability of a new agent or advisor making it past 2 years is, I don't know what the number is. I'd have to go to LIMRA, but it's incredibly low. And these agencies or these companies spend about $40,000 a year per agent to develop them. And they know that they're gone in probably 2 years. So the multi-level marketing, the IUL, creation, or how they do that makes sense, because they're bringing these new agents in. They know they're only going to make it 2 years. And when they're done, they know that business is going to come back to the house, and then they can kind of churn it and use it. And they know that IUL pays a really high commission and they can make it sexy. So that's why they do it. It's hard.
I think it's a mistake long-term for the industry, because
it's terrible for the industry.
The class action lawsuits, for example, that you mentioned, I bet a lot of them stem. I'm not familiar with that statistic, but I bet a lot of them stem from how things are being sold. And I'm sure Whole Life has a couple, but I bet you it's weighted heavily towards the IUL product chassis just because of how you can sell things, and some of the shenanigans you can do when selling an IUL.
There's definitely bad actors in both, and there's a lot of bad actors in IUL.
Right. But if you're a bad actor, what would you rather sell, IUL or whole life? It's like,
well, you can only be
really
so bad of an
bad
actor.
If
Yeah, you can only be so bad of an actor in whole life. Like you really can't
exactly
screw it up too bad. I mean, you can't.
Right.
Just,
if I wanted
like,
a quick cash grab, I would not just newsflash for everyone. If I'm pretty charismatic, I could make money in different ways. If all I cared about was making a quick buck, I would not choose whole life insurance as the vehicle. just to be clear, I'm sure there's worse products, but whole life is not necessarily the most sexy. And I always find it funny when people are like, going for a cash grab, and I just chuckle because I'm like, listen, there's a lot of different, like with our skill set, we could be promoting lots of different things that paid us a lot more, that were a lot more sexy.
Oh my gosh.
So just for the record, hey, I'm
going to make a bold prediction here, and I want to get your take on this. I truly believe that in the next 5 years, whole life insurance, the boring ass life insurance policies, I believe in 5 years, they are going to be super popular, super fun, and people are going to want them. And I know people are like, well, why is that any different than today? Because today people don't want them unless they're educated on them. People aren't seeking out whole life insurance, and insurance companies are actually limiting the amount of marketing dollars they put to whole life because it's just a hard product to sell. But in 5 years, that will be different. What is your take?
I agree with that because of our episode that we were talking, like the multiple jobs concept.
Yep.
Chris, it's probably very cool. Is like content that we make, we see the ripple effect. And I think these conversations, people are listening and then they're adopting and stealing, which are good. Like they're borrowing, I should say, because we don't know. It's, we're all helping and learning from each other. And I do believe that the message of giving your dollars more than one job, and that insurance is not an investment, and when integrated, does this make your financial life better? I think those three things, with the academic, backing on some of this stuff, I do agree with you. And what I'm really, really hoping is that fee-only fiduciaries actually lean in to life insurance and annuities, because how can you call yourself a fiduciary if you hate certain products? And it's like, it's I get it, but it's like taking ethics class. It's like, okay, I'm going to take a multiple choice question or test on ethics. Like, is this a joke? And the same thing I think with when it comes to fiduciary, you could have 100 different fiduciaries and have 110 different ideas. And it's interesting to me because what they do is they say, because you get paid a commission, it must be bad. It's like, I just think that's intellectually bad. Like, I think that's intellectually lazy to say you get a commission, so it equals bad. Whereas you should just say, I could care less about what something pays. What's a better outcome? Yes. If you don't charge a 1% management fee and you're invested in the same thing, you're going to get a better outcome not charging that fee. So I get that logic, but don't put that same logic on other products that do different things.
I agreed. 100% agreed.
So I agree with you. I'm very optimistic about our space. I also think AI is going to.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah, I think
it's going to really help, and it's going to eliminate a lot of shenanigans.
And that's kind of why I mentioned that. So in 5 years, I'm calling it out now, but I think we're going to be right here. And part of it is also the market's going to play into that a little bit, because people are going to realize that there's a downside to the stock market. It's not always, roses and unicorns and rainbows. There's a downside, and we will see that downside, and it's going to hurt bad. And when it does, people are going to be seeking safety. They're going to be seeking boring and security. And that's going to lead them to one place. And that's, what we're talking about. But the other thing is, I set out on a mission. I want to change the life insurance industry. I'm already changing the infinite banking concepts industry. And you are as well, with software or technology and calculators like what you just did. And we created the Vault, which has been a almost 3-year journey creating this revolutionary software that, let me explain that real quick, and then I'm going to keep going with AI. But the Vault has AI integrated. And in the Vault, what we set out to do is we wanted to create a way where the average person who doesn't have extra time can do the infinite banking concept, but doesn't have to do the work of infinite banking. Because I think a lot of people inherently, when they hear about infinite banking and being their own banker, they're like, yeah, that's great. That's awesome. But the actual application and implementation of doing that is a whole different story. A lot of people start, but then they don't complete, they don't finish. So I thought about this, and Craig and I, when we did it, we said, you know what? There was a day when I used to travel for snowboard contests, I used an atlas and I would map out that atlas. I would like tab the pages. I'd have the fastest route mapped out, but I had to understand how to read the map. I had to understand how to, when there was a detour or storms or stuff, and we had to go around, I had to recalculate and do it all myself. And then somebody literally one day got pissed off about using, AAA's triptychs or atlases. And they said, you know what? I'm going to write a software. And I'm going to write a software that all it's going to do is you're going to put destination in this little computer thingamajigger, and then you're going to hit go, and it's mathematically going to take you to your destination, the most efficient path. And if you got a detour for one reason or another, it's going to calculate and get you there the same way. And all you need to do as the user of this software is just follow instructions. Simple. Why doesn't that exist for what we do? And that's the question. I'm always asking why. Well, why? The hard questions. So we sat down and we said, all right, we're going to create the GPS for infinite banking, because I think a lot of people would use infinite banking, but they just don't want to track. They don't want to do spreadsheets. They don't want to do all that stuff. So I said, well, what if they didn't have to? Would that change the game? What if they just had to literally change where their savings went and then just had to have a problem? Everybody's got a money problem. So that's what we did with that. So when you talk about AI and technology, it's the same thing as everything else we've seen, like the Garmin, and GPS. Now, most people don't even need a GPS in their car. Remember that was such a upgraded feature when you used to buy a car. Now you just pick your phone and plug it in.
You aged yourself right there, because I don't remember that.
Dude, I am. I'm 48. So, but there was a time where like literally that was an upgraded feature in a car. And I remember looking for a car. I'm like, oh, it doesn't have GPS. We were like, no, we can't buy it. Now you don't need it because you got your phone. So that's how technology is evolving. It's making our lives faster, smarter, and more efficient. Well, that's what's happening in the life insurance industry. And specifically, that's what's happening in the whole life insurance industry is we're becoming faster, smarter, and more efficient at showing not what the product is, but showing what problem it solves. And that's what you've done a really good job at, is showing here's how money goes to work for you. Here's the calculator that shows you the math behind that. So I think that's the reason why it's going to be sexy again, more so than anything else.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
So what are you doing from an AI standpoint? Because I find that in this industry, the industry is always 10 years behind, especially from the insurance company standpoint. But, now we're almost being forced to look at AI and adopt it. Otherwise, we're going to die. Are you doing anything with AI?
You mentioned that when you first saw YouTube, how you saw like, hey, people are going to like come on this and make buying decisions, and people come to us each week, both of our companies, because they watch our videos and want to work with us. I see AI as a 100x lever on even that alone. Like the amount of people 5 years from now that are going to be like, I am doing this thing because of Gemini or ChatGPT telling me. So that's a really interesting thought. Any of the calculators that we're in the process of building, instead of going and paying companies hundreds of thousands of dollars, we're seeing, can we find a who that can leverage AI and take vision? And so that's something that we're doing. And then one of the things that we're leaning into just from a company standpoint is how can AI help us be more efficient, and how do we help our clients like just better their outcomes? I do believe there's going to be a world very soon. I'm not currently working on it, but it's on like the future to-do list, that like when you do policy reviews and all, like, no, it wouldn't be that hard for someone to upload their illustration and have an analysis of how it was designed. And I also, and it's interesting, we actually might agree on this. Majority of people that I talk to, when I say AI is going to replace most agents, they laugh at me. They're like, impossible. And I'm just like, guys, I am not a car person, but I bought a Tesla over 5 years ago. I still drive it to this day.
You like it?
And I bought it on my phone, which was insane. I bought one of the biggest purchases of my life at the time
on your phone.
On my phone. And that was 6 years ago.
10 years ago, I would have told you that's impossible.
Yeah. And so you're telling me that people would prefer to work with an agent who has a bad, like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And so I think it's very exciting, but I would be terrified if I was a mid agent not providing a ton of value, because it's like, why would I work with you when I could work with something more efficient? And so I think the silver lining is insurance companies really, really suck at telling stories and selling. And so there's still going to be, I think, middlemen and companies, but I do believe one of the biggest investments and plays out there are going to be people that, really get efficient and leverage the ability to get a message out and then be able to serve people well. And I do believe AI is going to be leveraged in a lot of different ways. And we're already doing a version of it by people watching videos and reading stuff. Like, they're already learning without us and then coming to us. AI is just going to help that much more and give people a better experience.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action, like so many others have, by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up.
I think AI is going to change the industry, just like it's changing every industry, but life insurance industry is always behind. But to what you said, I think what's happening now is because people are using the internet to search things and all that data is going somewhere. What AI does a really good job is any data you put in, if somebody understands how to build AI agents that are looking for this and that are creating this, any information that's out there, in a data center, let's use the vault. So the vault's front runner for us. People put info in because they're solving. They want to pay their debt off and they want a calculator to see what's the most mathematically efficient way to pay my policy off, whether I use velocity banking or infinite banking, like how does this work? So they go there and they're putting all this in. AI is looking at all the data they're inputting and literally then taking that data, that actual finite data that is specific to one person's problem that they're trying to solve, and then creating content or creating ad and then remarketing it back to that person. And now that person just gets an ad that is exactly what they were searching for. We see this in the car industry. So Tesla does a great job on this. Toyota does a phenomenal job on this. If you go on to any site and you try to build a car today, let's pick on a Toyota, and you build it all and you don't go any further ahead and you're like, I'm not going to do anything. All of a sudden, what you will find is in every one of your feeds, that exact car that you built shows up, and all the highlights that you were actually putting on, those accessories, are going to all then be marketed to you. That's phenomenal. The same thing's going to happen in the life insurance industry, which is going to make marketing more efficient because people suck at prospecting. New agents can't prospect to save their life, and that isn't going to change because kids just they're not born into an environment that breeds salespeople or prospectors. So AI is going to have to do that. But let me give you one other take. And I look at AI as just fantastic, but I also believe AI is probably going to someday be the Terminator 2 movie. But nonetheless, we need to go there.
It's enjoyable.
Just be nice to it. Say thank you and please a lot.
Always.
Always.
Always be polite. Yeah.
But here's how we're looking at it is from that marketing standpoint, we're already doing all of that. But then when a client gets on the phone with one of our mentors and they're talking about infinite banking, we've created agentic. Now you have to understand there's generative and agentic AI. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but agentic learns. Agentic is just like talking to a person. As it learns, it communicates. You can actually see it. It looks like you're talking to a person. So you're on the phone with a mentor and the mentor says to you, Caleb, it says, hey, listen, is it okay if Walter, my AI assistant, joins us? So the client says, yeah, no problem. Walter introduces himself. Okay. And if it's a Zoom, the person's like, well, that's Walter. Wow. Looks like a person. Right. Okay. Then you're going through and the agent's going through asking all the questions, the needs and goals. Walter is taking that data, inputting that data into the CRM, then taking that data and bringing it over to another agentic AI, which is trained to create illustrations that are specific to a client's needs and goals. So the info being put into the CRM is populating the information for this other agentic AI, which is then creating illustrations in the software. And that same AI is looking at all the illustrations created. Now, this is while the conversation is going on. So me and you, if I'm the agent and you're the client, me and you are just talking. Behind the scenes, AI is doing this masterful planning work. And then when all the illustrations are created from all the carriers, AI is going in and finding the one that's mathematically the best fit for that person's problem. Now, you need the Vault software because that's what solves the problem for the client, but it's running it all through the software. So then at the end of the conversation, which could be 30, 45 minutes, Walter says, hey, we've got your plan design done. Would you like to see it? To which the agent then presents the exact plan design that client was looking for. This all happened in 45 minutes. That is not humanly possible. That would be, at the best case scenario, a two-part meeting. So 2 meetings. And now, because of AI, that's able to be done in 1 meeting and probably a relatively short meeting. And now take that and scale that. As long as you can produce leads and you can get people on the phone, you can solve more problems in less time. And then if you use AI in the same fashion for applications and underwriting questions, you speed that process up. If you use AI to be the thought partner, and notice how I said thought partner to a human in the implementation, or what we call our bankers only club, now all of a sudden you're able to implement and solve problems for clients faster and more efficiently. That's the future, folks. If you're not embracing that in any industry, we're just talking about the financial industry and life insurance, but if you're not embracing that will be the future, not in 5 years from now. That future is here now. Once quantum computing comes into play, which it's already being used, they're not talking about it, but it's being used, everything changes. I'm sorry I went long-winded on that, but it's changing everything. And people that don't get on board will be left behind.
Yeah, agreed. And I'm excited and healthily terrified as well. But that staying humble, I think, will keep us ahead of the curve, because I think the biggest issue is when you assume that you're not going to be replaced. That's the most dangerous place. But to know, like, I will be replaced, it's only a matter of time. And by the way, it might mean replaced by death. So it's like everyone will be replaced at some point. And then it just keeps you a lot more honest, and it's less ego. It's like, hey, listen, it's like, just because that's the way that it's always been done. It's like, thank goodness we can do illustrations via the computer. I mean, can you imagine some of the people that were against computers doing life insurance illustrations? Because the way that we've always been doing it is you use your rate book and you blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yikes. And I think there's going to be lots of hiccups. Going back to like the volatility, two potential takes is we could have a lot of volatility over these next couple of years, because if people are losing their jobs at scale, there's fear. But then over time, like, AI could be one of the greatest things that happen to our economy if adopted well. And so it'll be interesting to see. I actually have a hot take that mutual life insurance companies will help you stay alive longer, because I think the incentives are pure. And there's already some insurance companies that are toying with this. But it's like, if you have a life insurance company and I have $10 million on your life, Chris, you better believe I want you to live as long as possible. And so why wouldn't insurance company, help make testing a no-brainer for you? Because what other financial institution is incentivized to keep you alive? I guess banks, because they don't want you to die and leave them with but you get like mutual insurance companies have the purest incentive to keep you alive, because it's better for them financially, and i.e. better for me because I'm alive. So I actually,
that's a really great perspective.
Yeah. Being in the health space, it's just like, man, I'm already like having some conversations and figuring out like, what would it look like to do some of this stuff? And I just think long-term, this is going to be like, life insurance could be the solution to health problem. I know that's a crazy take, but think about it and say, who's incentivized to keep us alive longer? And one of the only financial institutions that actually have that incentive is insurance companies. And so that's a cool rabbit hole that we could go down.
Man, I've never heard anybody mention that, but it absolutely makes 1000% sense. There's no reason for them not to invest money in trying to keep you living longer. And with modern, science, we don't want to go into the medical world, because I think the health insurance and the medical world is just so fractured and broken, but it's fixing itself. If there are little pockets, doctors are breaking free from the big, primary care physician groups, and they're going independent in these MV VIPs. Yes, it costs money, But like I have that, and I will tell you, like, I can't understand why anyone wouldn't find a way to do that, because it's almost like going back to the 20s and 30s where doctors came to your house to take care of you. It's very much like that. I just went and had a test done yesterday because we do blood paneling, and that blood paneling tells all, right? And you can do that, and then you can do genome testing, which we've done, and all these. Now, this is just my doctor. I want to be clear. This isn't some, other doctor firm or one of those expensive things that I pay for. This is just my primary physician. His name's Chad. And we run all these panels. We sat down and we went through them, and he's, we're checking all the things, and he runs you against like the averages. And then one of the things, like my cholesterol was a little high, and I'm like, how? Like, I don't eat meat. Like I barely have, I have a good diet. I swim almost every single day. And he's like, well, I don't know, but let's send you for, I think it was a CT scan to see calcium. And this was yesterday morning at 7:20 in the morning. It was like 10 minutes. I was in and out. At 3:00 yesterday afternoon, I get a text from my doctor. He says, hey, you have zero plaque in your artery, zero calcium buildup at all. You're good to go. I think your cholesterol buildup that we're seeing is just, it's just your body's makeup. And he said, there's no risk whatsoever now. I mean, think about that. Like, and the reason I bring that up is because going back to the health insurance, that was just a blood panel. And that, yes, it was a CT scan, but the blood panel is what derived that. Imagine if life insurance companies found a way to incentivize people through either ratings or maybe gave you a budget or like a debit card every year, kind of how health insurance companies do, just to get regular blood panels, right? And instead of sending the blood panel to your doctor, which usually your doctor's too busy to even look at you, you're just a number. What if it went to a special group within the life insurance company where they then did what my doctor did and just sent you back, hey, here are some things, and here's a list of things you could do to course correct that. That would make you live longer.
Yeah, I'm going to get myself in trouble by saying this, but I'm in conversations with a company that does testing, like blood tests, DNA testing and all. We're not running it through the insurance company, but one of the questions I have is, can we do it independently? Can we prove the case and then pitch it to an insurance company and say
the
you're
insurance
out of your
company
mind?
buys it.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, we're just where I'm going to get myself in trouble. We're a ways out, but I just want you to know, this is why I love talking to you. It's like, I've gone down that road, I've had meetings with companies that do blood tests at scale because I'm really interested in this. And I just, again, how many people are thinking this way? There's very few. And I think it's fun to talk to people that are thinking about, okay, like, yeah, we can talk about the past, try to optimize the past, but the future is really bright. It's really exciting. And, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun future to navigate through.
That is really cool. Now, I want to pivot a little bit and transition. You've done something that I have not seen really anybody else do in our industry, where you've got this event that you have been putting on every single year, but it's just a peer-to-peer event. It's like agents, right? Like most people want to go to an event. Most advisors or agents want to go to an event because they get in front of clients, potential clients, prospects. But you're not doing that. You came up with this idea to put a bunch of agents and advisors in one room, and you've managed to make it so that nobody gets in a fist fight, which is, I think, pretty phenomenal. You've also,
that's maybe my greatest gifting.
You've also brought us all together way more than I've ever seen anyone do. Like, talk about like back in the origins of what your idea was with this, because it was kind of bold to come up with this idea.
I'm here,
to even think that it would work.
Yeah, I'm here because of people that have gone before me. And I've also been impacted a lot by TED Talks. I don't like to sit around and watch boring lectures and all. So TED Talks were really big. I'm also heavily dyslexic. So I connected my way to learning from people. So if I wanted to try to solve a problem, I don't think of what I need to read. I find like, who knows that solution? Can I be friends with them? And so I did that. And at a young age, I became pretty well connected in our space. And, writing a book that was self-published that got around, like, also helped. And this was before COVID. I did this thing online, and I realized that there are a lot of advisors and insurance agents that needed help. And so that like kind of opened my eyes to like, oh, there could be something here. And before COVID, this was actually like right before the world shut down a few months. We did this like workshop, and we had like 45 people show up. And some people traveled, and that was like the example of the 4-minute mile, where I was like, oh, people, this is actually possible. And I enjoyed it because I love talking to people that are like, for me, I don't see you as competition, Chris, because I'm such a small thinker. If I'm thinking that we're competing for the small pie, there are billions and billions of people that need our help. There's at least millions of people that need our help. We wouldn't even know where to begin with, even with AI. So we just need to think bigger. And I'm like, well, one of the ways to do that is to help more people. And something funny happens when I help you and I help you and I help you, I end up benefiting as well. And so the next thought was like, okay, we started this podcast and I started bringing on other people. At the time that we were doing that, that wasn't necessarily the most common. It's still conversations like this aren't even that common today.
Well, we were talking about that offline. Somebody's like,
5 or 6 years ago, the idea of interviewing people that were quote unquote competitors felt like, why would you do that? Why would you platform them? And it's just like, no, my status increases when I platform experts. And I've done it on YouTube. And yes, did they benefit? Yes. I've had people that are like, Caleb, I came on your show and got a ton of leads. Happy for them, because I also get leads and people wanting to work with us. I believe people are smart enough. They can work with whoever they want to work with. And so that aspect. And then, so the event was really like, could I take the TED Talk style, short to the point, give us your best idea? Could I track people with different backgrounds? Like we had IUL and whole life debate on stage. Very few conferences will touch that. They'll take cheap shots, but they won't actually do they won't do the debate. And so my heart behind this is I want to get multiple insurance companies, multiple people, multiple different perspectives, all together, have us connect, have us grow a community, and then hear different ideas. And we're having our 5th annual one in June. And if that's something that you're interested in, you can reach out to me. I would be honored to, and I'm really grateful that you even mentioned this, because I don't make any money from this, but I benefit greatly from it. So the event is a non-money maker for me. In fact, it costs me money each year. But for me, the richness of connections and people and networking with it's far out. It's the best mastermind that I could personally do. And so I do it for selfish reasons, but it's really fun to see that it also benefits other people as I'm able to connect with so many great people.
Well, I'll commit right now. I will, be present at the event, but I would also like to sponsor it. So the Vault, I would love to sponsor it with the Vault software for sure.
Thank you. And I don't know if I reached out to Brent earlier and just was like, hey, let's brainstorm how we can get more people. And so the fact that you brought this up without me even asking, I'm honored and would love for you to be a part, sponsor, and also share your perspective. What would be cool is if you talk about how you guys are using AI, because
that's what the Vault is. The Vault is 100% driven by AI, 100%. So like that will be that discussion on how we're using AI. And I'd love to talk on that and then just kind of go into the Vault.
Cool. Well, we'll put a link below or my email below for people that are interested in learning more. I'm honored for you to play a part of this, Chris. And it's going to be excited to see you in person.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll put the link up in the description for this podcast as well, if you guys are looking for it. But let's keep going. I know on the podcast we did on yours, we were just talking about the boring aspects of what whole life does to solve a problem. And, like you have done a very good job with the and asset of kind of showing how it's not this or that, it's this and that. But now you've got this calculator that you put together that really goes through and points out like all the different ways for your money to work for you. Can you do the same thing? If I give you the ability to share, can we just kind of walk through that? I just thought that was super powerful. And I think this audience, in a great way to kind of wrap this up, this audience needs to see what you've come up with here, because it's just a really simple way for people to articulate how valuable the whole life insurance returns are in comparison with other industry things that you could put your monny into. So
let me first of all share something that I did not share at first. I think this is a good place to start. And so when we talk about specially designed life insurance, you got to understand the benefits. And if you don't understand the benefits, it becomes less sexy. I'll just put it that way. Like it still can be very sexy, but it becomes less sexy. When we talk about pros and cons, I think it's important to start here and understand the jobs that you're doing with your dollars, but there's cons to anything that you do. And if someone says that there's no downside to anything, it's like, I'm going to run. And so the pros to life insurance. I've listed them. I would be curious to hear if you would add to any of this, Chris, but I mean, it's super safe, easily accessible. I'm giving a yellow check mark on competitive growth. What's fun was when we were on the show, you were like arguing with me on that. I'm like, Chris, you like, trust me, like I'm going to prove that it's a green, but I do that a little bit from a sales psychology to just say, listen, I'm not going to try to right now. I'm not trying to compare this thing to an investment, but over time, I think we could agree that this will actually compete against most investments. And so I put it as yellow, even though I would say on this show that I would put this as green. And you just go down all the list of benefits. And then the cons, the three big cons that I have when it comes to insurance is it's not tax deductible. Neither is a Roth, neither is a savings account, by the way, but it's not tax deductible. It takes a couple years before you have more money than what you put in. And not everyone qualifies for health. Those were the three cons that I came up with. I don't know if there's more that you can add, but those were like the three, like usually people don't do the strategy. Don't do the strategy because they have less money in the first year. Okay. Some people can't do the strategy because they can't qualify health-wise. We both know that there's creative ways to get around that. Your spouse, your business partner, your kids, your grandchildren. And then there's no account that gives you a tax deduction and tax-free on the back end. And so you got to pick, and I would rather have the tax benefits on the back end. So that's how I explain this. And so we talk about, entrepreneurs can put their money in savings accounts and invest in certain things, which is great. The pros to a savings account, it's safe, liquid, convenient, and gives you some growth. But the cons are super low growth, long term. It's not tax deductible, does not grow tax deferred, no creditor protection. So that's where most people are putting their money and utilizing. They're doing it because of the convenience, but there's a lot of cons. And all we're saying is like, what if you could put that money into an overfunded life insurance policy and do the same thing? And you get the pros, yes, you get the cons, but over time, it's not even comparable because of all the jobs that it does for your dollar. And so then we lean into, okay, we talked about the competitive growth. Let's talk about that. And we look at the internal rate of return. And I explain to people that IRR means that you're earning, when an IRR tells you that it's earning 4.5%, that means every single year, including the down years. And so all we're doing is we're saying, okay, all the benefits that I listed here are all the benefits that you get with life insurance. Let's take that IRR. It could be 4.1, 3.5, 5%, whatever. Right now, this is putting 4.58% in the cash IRR. And all we're doing is we're adding taxes. And we're not saying that insurance is giving you more than 6.5%. We're just saying at a 30% tax assumption, which we talked about in some states is super low. Now you have to earn over 6.5% every single year without a down year to compete. And yeah, we're not talking about investments. What savings account, what other assets that give you all these benefits hold a candle to getting you an equivalent return? None. And then you add cost of insurance, and then you add fees, and then we could even add chronic illness rider, creditor protection. We could do risk adjusted. I just took out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I took out 5 benefits, and we still got chronic illness rider, creditor protection, no contribution limits, private, all these things in green, I haven't even factored in. And I'm showing an equivalent value rate of return of 8.45%. Again, to be clear, I'm not saying that life insurance gets you a rate of return out of your cash at 8.4. I'm just saying when we start understanding that the jobs that you get with life insurance, if we're not factoring it in, it's intellectually dishonest for us to say that it's a terrible rate of return when we're not actually factoring in all the jobs that it does. The only apples to apples comparison is for us to actually factor in all the jobs that life insurance does compared to what you're going to do. And in a lot of cases, there's no comparison, not one comparison when you actually look at all these aspects. And so for me, we wanted to get this because we wanted something simple, but we wanted people to see this. And then we're going to combine it with a loan calculator where it was like, okay, you're getting your money in here. And now wherever you use your money, the next question is, when does it make sense to borrow? We have a little bit different ways that we teach this, but for me, it makes sense to borrow when my activity is greater than the borrowing rate. Yeah. And so now I literally can get my dollars doing all the benefits internally. By the way, it's going to do that regardless if you borrow. There's nothing magical that happens with your policy when you borrow, but now you're telling me I can have access to capital to potentially actually invest, actually multiply, actually create opportunity, and I get all these benefits. Like that for me is just like, man, it's pretty incredible. And again, I'm not saying that this is an investment. It's not, but there are people, Dalbar will prove and proves in their studies that the average investor makes less than 8%. Why? Because of emotion, because of fees, because of all those other things. And so again, I'm not saying that insurance is going to compete with the S&P. I'm just saying that if you start adding in all the other jobs, you can't tell me that it's a terrible rate of return, because it's not, especially when you factor in those jobs.
Well, I think the best thing here to really understand is, people, they often get hung up on the 4.58, that internal rate of return being paid on a whole life insurance policy, but they don't factor that that's growing tax free. And then when they figure out what they'd have to earn outside, that to earn, that's where you come into this. And then I love how you thought through all the other drains, right? Like the management fee. People would say, oh, well, I could put my money in my brokerage account with my advisor. Okay, well, if they're charging 1%, that's a factor in there. Or like, well, I would just buy term insurance for the death benefit. So that's not really a benefit. It'd be cheaper for me to just buy term insurance. Well, let's factor that in. And when you did all that, 8.45, and that was using definitely like a very inexpensive term insurance calculation at 10%, but 8.45, like that's what you'd have to earn. That's what your investments would have to earn to compare with a guaranteed whole life insurance policy. Like, I don't see why anyone, Brent Kessler would always say, the juice just is not worth the squeeze, right? Like you're going to squeeze that juice, try to squeeze, the orange to get the juice out, and it's just not worth it.
Yeah. What's interesting is there are planners out there that will use guaranteed universal life, which is essentially life insurance with no cash value benefit, but it will last till you die, and so they do it from an estate planning purpose, and it can be a great product. It works great, but when you compare that, now the equivalent, because now you're buying life insurance to like age 80 or 85, the equivalent rate of return jumps up to like 15 or 16%. And so then the natural question would be like, why wouldn't you just put in, like, where can you get that? Like, so that it's cool because I'm being really, I feel like I'm the way that you beat this up is you could, for some people, taxes might be a little high. Some people, it might be low. Some people might say, well, I don't pay a management fee. Okay. And then cost of insurance, I think, is pretty conservative. That easily could be at 15%. So the cool nature is it's a calculator. You can input whatever you want. It just is, and I can't necessarily take credit for this concept because Todd Langford and many other people have done something like this. What we're just doing is we're giving it to the people, and we're making it where you don't need an illustration to run for you to actually use something like this. And so this only gets better when you can incorporate illustrations, but it's something where if you understand how different things work, you can easily do it yourself. And I believe in giving the power back to the people.
Yeah, no, I love this. And, I'm always forward thinking. So I'm looking at that saying that easily would work within the vault, like, because the vault does integrate all the policies into one central hub, and
how cool would that
operating
be?
Then all of a sudden you got that calculator to say, hey, this is what you'd need to earn outside to do what
the
this
equivalent
just did.
value. Yeah, we should talk more about that because that would be how cool would that be to be able to see that, and then an annual reviews become really fun.
And the reviews, when they want to bring their advisors on, become really fun for us, not for the advisor.
Yeah, man,
it's hard to punch holes in mathematics. It really is. And that's what I found. And, I think, we'll wrap on that, like that calculator's just so simple, but so fundamentally important for helping people get over the hurdles. Back to what we said earlier in this podcast. So, in 5 years from now, whole life's going to be popular again. It's going to be sexy again. People are going to line up and want whole life again. And these are the things that are going to pave the way for that, because whole life will never be sexy. Just chalk that up. It just won't. No matter how you design it, it's never going to be sexy. But what whole life does, the why, that is incredibly sexy. And I think that's a view in, of what the next 5 years is going to look like. So Caleb, thank you so much for coming on, man. Thanks for having me on your podcast, and we should do more of these.
Yeah, we for sure. So we should do more. And if you're watching this and you have topics that you want Chris and I to talk about, please put them in the chat. Thank you for coming on my show. And also thank you for promoting our event. It means a ton. And I very much look forward to what the future holds as it relates to that.
Absolutely. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Money School Elite. Hey, right in the description, what you'll find is you'll find a link if you want to join us at the event. Click that link. And also, I'm going to just throw a link up there for the And Asset, the book we've been talking about this entire podcast. Thanks for joining. We'll see you on the next one.